Welcome to Combat Brain, the podcast where we dissect every facet of combat sports. From the grind of gym ownership to the artistry of coaching and everything in between. Join us as we explore the minds and methods behind the world's most formidable fighters, trainers, and entrepreneurs. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just stepping onto the mat, prepare to expand your combat IQ as we dive deep into the strategies, stories, and secrets that fuel the fight game. Welcome to Combat Brain, where the battle begins in the mind.
All right, Don, thanks for joining us on Combat Brain.
Good morning.
I'm super honored to have you on the show. And just for the listeners, I wanted to give them a quick recap of how we met. Like, I work for the commission and I met Don. He's always bringing fighters in there. They do pretty well. Don and I have had multiple opportunities to just chat. I've just been really amazed at his strategies and the conversations that he has with them. So I'm really excited to dive into some deeper understanding of how you do what you do.
Yeah, I'm excited too.
All right, well, why don't we just start with a little introduction? Why don't you kind of just tell the listeners what got you into martial arts and where it all started?
Man, there's a pretty decisive beginning. I was in education software for like 15 years. But sitting by my computer and traveling, doing that stuff, I just put on weight, started getting older, and I was like, man, I gotta start working out again. I gotta get in shape, And so I was kind of him and hawing with a friend, and then he's like, he was actually getting married, and he's like, let's do a weight loss bet before I get married. And I was going to be his best man, and they're going to get married in Mexico on the beach. And he's like, that way we can both lose some weight before we go. And so I was like, oh, that's perfect. So I joined a jiu-jitsu gym, having never wrestled, never did anything. I played football in college, so I was an athlete, but I never wrestled, did anything like that. I was about 279 pounds when we started, and we did a weight loss bet for every 3 months for the whole year leading up to his wedding. And I beat him every single time. So, and literally a year later, I was making my debut and fought MMA a little over a year after I started at 205. So I'd lost like 70 pounds. I was always a pretty big muscular dude, but I'd also put on a lot of, unwanted weight, and so I kind of just transitioned my body. I got a lot leaner and a lot more athletic, than just being big and strong. And so I lost a lot of weight. So that's how I got into it.
Just for timeline purposes, like what year was that?
That was 14 and a half years ago.
Okay.
Yep. So I Googled gyms, and there was really nothing near me that was close, but we had a hub that I came to like twice a week that was in Stapleton. And so, and there was a gym there that had pretty good reviews. It was relatively small. When I went there, they had about 30 students, maybe even less than that, maybe like 25 students. He'd been open, like a year or something. So it was a good fit for me because they had, it was small, and I got, a ton of reps in and a ton of attention, and so, man, it just started snowballing. We had a kid come in that moved here from out of town and was going to be an MMA fighter. And so he was already fighting MMA, was getting ready for a fight. And he was my size. And so we just kind of became training partners. So he just beat the crap out of me, And so the first time he went to camp for like 6 weeks, and we went to Steve Alley's fight. And Steve Alley just passed away. He was an amazing dude, man. Everybody loves Steve. He was a great dude. He used to do those shows at the Red Lion, and they were really great shows. And so this kid Josh fights on one of those cards, and I go, and man, some of the undercards had dudes like in basketball shorts fighting. And I was like, I thought everybody that fought was like seasoned fighters, I'm like, I could beat some of these dudes, So then, and Josh was like, oh, you definitely could, like I've been training with him for, probably 8 months by then, just on the ground and stand up and being his main training partner. And so then the next time there's a fight, Steve Alley says, do you want to be on this card? And I'm like, I do. Like, I want to check it off my bucket list. I don't know what'll happen. I'm like, I've been in like a couple altercations in my whole life. Like I've never really fought anybody or done anything like that, and it's, it's one of those things you just don't know what's going to happen. And so he's like, okay, cool. I'll put you on the card. I have a card coming up. And it was on St. Patrick's Day. Right. And so he made it the St. Patrick's Day massacre. And so I was like, all right, cool. And so then I'm like, fuck, what have I done? And I'm like, at that time I was 37 years old, like I made my debut really late, I was really far down the path. And so, I mean, I'm working full time, in corporate America. I wear a fucking suit every day, and then here I am like I'm going to be a cage fighter. So this is hilarious. So Steve gives me these tickets, right? And he's like, sell tickets, to your fight if people want to come. I'm like, okay, cool. So Steve gives me, and everybody's like, this is so cool. He gives me 25 tickets and they're gone, like in the first week. And we're like 5 weeks out, 6 weeks out from the fight, right? All my neighbors buy them. I was married then, both my daughters and all their friends, we all hung out in this neighborhood. Everybody knew everybody. So then some people from work start buying them. He gives me 25 more. And so I ended up selling like 487 tickets for my debut, right?
Oh my God. I'm sure Steve was like,
yeah. So the absolute best part is that I take all of the money, right? He's like, I want to meet you the day before weigh-ins because I don't want to do this the day of weigh-ins because you have so many tickets and so much money. And I'm like, perfect. I'm ready to be done with this. I'm like, this fucking wad of money that I'm gonna give to you, And so I had no clue that you got a commission for selling tickets, right? You got 20% commission, right? So I meet Steve the day before and I sold like $8,000 in tickets. So I got like a $1,200 commission, whatever.
That's insane.
I bring all $8,641 exactly, and I'm counting, and he's like, okay, you had all these generals, all these first rows, all these second rows. He's like, Don, this is crazy. Like, I've never seen anybody sell tickets like this. And I'm like, I thought everybody does. I'm like, I've been losing my mind. Like people coming in from out of town. I'm like, I feel like the fucking pressure's on, I've never fought once. And so he's like, so I give him all $8,600 and he gives me like $1,200 back. And I'm like, what is this? I'm like, I thought AM fighters couldn't get paid. He's like, oh, you don't get paid to fight. He's like, you get a commission as a ticket sales. So I had no clue. And he just peels me off $1,200. I'm like, oh, nice. Now I got like a little slush fund for a vacation or something. So that was my one.
That was your very first MMA.
That was my very first one. Yep. I wish Steve Alley was here. Him and I used to crack up. So that was my very first fight. I went out and I TKO'd the kid. Pretty quickly. I was scared to death, man. And so I'd fought like 3 or 4 times. And then there was Seth did the show at Magnus Arena. And I fought this.
That's back when he was doing MMA.
Yep, he was doing MMA shows. Yep. And he did I don't remember what he called it. But I fought this kid named Kevin Fenton. He was like 6'4" and he'd lost like 100 pounds too. Or more. But he was like 19 years old. And I was like 39. So we were like 20 years apart. So that's like, it's the old guy versus the young guy. So leading up to that, Seth used to do a bunch of promotions, right? And so I'd gone to work a couple times with like black eyes and stuff, from training. And people are like, burr, and I never told anybody. I just said, I do this kickboxing class kind of thing. And I was just really passive, right? I'm like, I'm a cage fighter. And so my old boss, the old owner of my company, she was really great, right? She's like, hey, will you pop into my office and talk to me? And I go, yeah, cool. So I go into her office and she's like, I have this Spotify app or like Pandora app or something. She's like, and all these ads pop up. And I'm like, all right. And she's like, this one popped up of this fight at Magnus Arena and she screenshotted it. And she's like, there's this guy on there and his face looks like yours. And I was like, huh. And she's like, huh. I Googled it, looked it up, and he has the same name as you. And I go, huh. And she's like, are you
answering her own question?
Yeah. And I'm just like, all right. I'm like, I'm not gonna lie, I'm like, it does look a lot like me. You're correct. And so she's like, are you fighting? And I go, yeah. I'm like, I found jiu-jitsu like a year ago. So it's getting me in shape, and I'm like, I'm getting divorced and it's like my outlet, it's keeping me healthy. And all of a sudden I fought, this is gonna be like my 4th or 5th fight, and she's like, oh, that's amazing. And I'm like, okay, cool. And she's like, what? I was like, I was a little bit worried, like I'm in charge of people there, and I'm like, I'm supposed to be this, like professional person. And it was really like living 2 lives, like these guys are all animals in the gym, and like drinking and chasing girls and being crazy, and then I'm supposed to be like this professional leader,
Together, suit wearing. Yeah.
So unbeknownst to me, she sends out a work email and she says, "Hey, I bought 80 tickets to Don's fight. Anybody wants to go? I'm going to give 40 of them away so you and your spouse or whatever can go." So then the day of the fight, all these people are like, "We're coming to your fight," from my job.
I love that.
Now I'm out here in these shorts with no shirt, and like, no one knew I had a tattoo because I wear long sleeve shirts. And they're like, "You have a full sleeve?" I'm like, "Yeah, I have a dope tattoo all the way on my arm." So all the work people were immersed. So then I could not go to our office without the old ladies at the front desk going, "Oh, my grandson Googled all of your fights and he wants to know what you eat in the mornings." And I'm like, I can't get any fucking work done. All of a sudden, I'm like this generic celebrity at my office for work with all these people asking me questions all the time. And then it didn't help that I had a spectacular fight. Evan beat the crap out of me. It was right before one of my other nose surgeries. I had blood pouring everywhere. And so in between the first and second, or the second and the third round, I'd lost the second round for sure. I took him down the first round, beat him up, almost Kimura'd him, and his head got stuck against the cage, and I couldn't get the arm behind his back. I'm like, "You're gonna make me break your fucking arm?" And he's like, "Fucking break it." And I'm like, "God damn it." And he fucking didn't. I couldn't do it, and he didn't buy the bluff, and he wouldn't tap. So then second round, he beat me up on the feet. He had good kickboxing, and my nose was gushing blood and chunks in there everywhere, and I couldn't breathe. And so I told my coach between the second and third round, I go, "I can't breathe. I go, I have to keep my mouth open to get any air in, and he's going to knock me out." And he's like, "If I get you a break, you promise me you'll win this fight." And I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "If I get you a break, you swear to me you'll win this fight." I'm like, "If you can get me a break so I can clear my nose and shit." He's like, I promise you'll win this fight." He's like, "As soon as you come out, circle, go inside leg kick, let it run up as high as you can, as hard as you can, kick him right in the dick, and you'll get a break." And I'm like, "All right." I'm like, "Fuck, okay, that's genius." So we go out. I didn't even inside kick. It was like an axe kick straight up. Bam. Arch, right?
No angle.
For the whole crowd, right? And he crumbles to his knees, and they're like, "To your corner." So I go to the corner, and he's like, "Spit out that blood and blow out your nose." So I turn to the cage, and I go to spit it outside of the cage, and it's a mouthful of blood and curdling out of my nose and stuff. A mouthful. Horrible. And it was press row. I spit it outside, and everybody's laptops and notebooks were right against
the
table. I was just looking down. I'm like, "Oh my God, these people are going to lose their shit on me." So then I ended up knee barring him and tearing his ACL. And it was on, they had Inside MMA with Boss Rutan back in the day on ESPN.
Yeah.
And the caption for that show was Doomsday in Denver, because I went knee bar on him. And then I looked back at him and I told him he better fucking tap again, like I did with the Kimura, and he didn't. And I fucking went like this, and you could see it pop. And screaming, holds his knee, and everybody just went fucking crazy. And it was like an internet sensation for a while. Yeah, but it was like all this roller coaster stuff of happening. And that was the very first fight that all the people from my old company came to. All the tech nerds, in the back were like, "You think you could show me this and do that?" I'm like, no, I have work to do. I don't come to the office. I don't come to our corporate office anymore for this reason. You guys hounding me with all this shit. So,
that's a great story.
Pretty crazy ride. As I finished corporate America there and all that stuff happening. So a lot of great people, a lot of amazing people along the way.
It's a good way to kind of go out too.
Yep. Once you fight a few times, you're like, "All right, I just need to go out and perform well." And that's what I talk to all my fighters about. I'm like, "Listen, whether you're fighting a scrub or you're fighting really someone really good, we always want to perform well. If you perform well, we'll beat the people that we're supposed to beat. And if we get beat by someone when we perform well, we know that they're just better than us, right? So it's about performing well." And then that was the beginning of the train. Like all of a sudden, the train was driving me. Like other promoters were calling. I fought for Jeff at Sparta Labs a whole bunch. I fought for Seth with Fight to Win when he had it. I mean, I ended up fighting, like I fought in Wyoming a couple times where it wasn't even sanctioned. I mean, we fought in Pueblo at the softball fields, and there was a brawl. We fought in Pueblo, and they had the corner rooms in the dugouts, in the cement dugouts. So we were out in the dugouts. Yeah, taping hands and doing, and it was on it. And then there's grass. They put the cage up on the grass field in softball, and then everybody just circled around it. And then everybody drank. And by the end of the night, like 10 dudes started fighting 10 dudes on the grass. And there's like 4 security dudes trying to break it up. And it's just a brawl and a melee. And we still haven't done the co-main or the main yet. We're just like, oh my God.
Those are the best.
Oh yeah, there were some crazy times back then. And fighting in Wyoming was crazy because they didn't. you didn't do any medical records. There was no sanctioning. You know, you
And
didn't
no
do
blood draws, like
no
nothing.
blood draws, no nothing. So I ended up fighting, you know, like 13 times. I was 9-4. You know, I had a couple brutal injuries that sat me for a while, but it's such a damaged sport that when you're in camp, you know, it's grueling on your body, it's grueling on your family, and it's grueling on everyone in your circle. And I really didn't feel like I had anything to prove. I won a bunch of belts. I beat a bunch of good guys that, you know, eventually made big runs. And, you know, I met some cool people, and my body was starting to deteriorate. You know, I actually quit for like a year and a half, and then Steve Alley brought me back one time. He had me fight. They did those shows at the bar in Aurora, the country bar that has the big wood stairs
The
upstairs.
Stampede.
Stampede, yeah. He was doing a big show at the Stampede, and he called me. He's like, "Hey, in 2 months, I'm doing a big show at the Stampede. Do you want to fight one more time?" And I go, "No." And he's like, "All right." He's like, "If you change your mind, let me know." And I was like, "Cool, cool." And kept training. And then he waited like a week, and then sent me a couple of messages. He's like, "Hey, you should fight this guy, Mark Hill." He's like, "He's real short, you know, he's a good striker, you know, like people are scared of him, you know, but he's like, he'd be scared of you." I was like, "God, it's probably not a bad idea, you know." I'm like, I haven't fought like a year and a half, and everybody keeps going, "When are you fighting again?" And I go, I'm done. You're like, I mean, you just in MMA, you just say you're retired, but then if you decide you're not retired, you just come back and fight again, you know.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, you know, I told
We
everybody,
do it all the time.
yeah, I'm like, "God, I'm retired." And they're like, "Well, maybe not, like maybe one more." So I did come back, and that was a lot of fun because my girls were a lot older by then. They were always really small when I fought. And we have some cool pictures of them holding some of the belts with me inside of the cage that we have up on our house, you know, and they have some of those memories. But they remember my last fight because they were quite a bit older when I fought Mark. And so I came back and fought one more time, you know, and then I knew that. I was like, even leading up to it, I was like, this may not have been the great idea. I think I was 44 at that time. I'm like, this may not have been the great idea. This dude's like 29 years old. Like he's, you know, like he's young, you know, explosive athlete, you know, and you're not anymore. And, you know, I got a pretty dope submission on him and got out of there. So I was pretty stoked with that. So, and I really walked away with like, I've never, ever thought about fighting again. You know, people have hit me up. I luckily for me, Seth introduced the Jiu-Jitsu Pro right after that, the very first Jiu-Jitsu Pro. And that's where Bugby and I kind of made each other famous. You know, he decided to heel hook me, and I decided not to tap, and people lost their minds, you know, and we kind of stole the show. You know, and we went back and forth, you know, in a bunch of matches. And then, man, I was this lonely brown belt out of my gym. Jiu-Jitsu Pro really saved me because I still had an outlet, you know, so I was still able to train and get in shape and do that, you know, and it really transitioned a bunch of our guys because, you know, Seth has purple belts and brown belts, you know, do the Jiu-Jitsu Pro too. So that was a big transition for me that, you know, that definitely solidified that I was done fighting MMA, and I had no business getting back in there again. You know,
when you were fighting MMA, do you think that your style favored one or more of the martial arts when you were doing MMA?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I was a ground and pound and jiu-jitsu guy. My stand-up was calling it mediocre would be pleasant. I was always a ground and pound guy. There was tons of cage work. I used to always just pressure people, cage work, take them down, beat them up, you know, and people knew that, which, you know, styles make fights. You know, I fought a couple guys that had really good, really great records. They kept giving me guys that were fucking like knockout artists. Like I fought this kid, Hector Lombard, you know, and he was like 6-1 with 6 knockouts, you know. And I'm like, why are you giving me him? Like he's definitely like, he wants a striker, and I'm gonna push him against the cage and take him down, you know. And they're like, well, if Don gets him down, you know, he'll submit him, and if they stay up, then Hector will knock him out. And I fought a couple other people who were real good strikers, you know, and even lost a couple. I lost to Zach Chesney when I was really banged up and hurt, and he fucked me up, man. He had a great fight. I came in a little bit banged up, and he was super fresh and sharp, and he finished me with TKO and fucking beat the shit out of me. So I mean, matchups make fights, but I'm a cage work guy and a ground and pound guy for sure.
So that made it easy to transition to that kind of fight to win pro, just exclusively jiu-jitsu scene.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that show. I think it's been an outlet for a lot of people, you know, especially when they kind of age out of those tournaments because they don't have a lot of those upper belts.
Yeah.
It's nice to kind of showcase your stuff against one opponent that you get to train for.
Absolutely. And now there's so many of them. I mean, there's the third coast grappling. I mean, there's so many pro shows now that are giving, fighters $500, $800 to show up and do a jiu-jitsu match, and no one's getting rich, but a lot of times it pays for your flight, pays for your hotel. You get to go compete, and that helps a ton. Back in the day there was, you pay IBJJF, and go try to win worlds. And that was it, and like I did it. I mean, I did it over and over and over again until I won worlds. I kept going, paying all the IBJJF fees and all that stuff, and now it's like, there's a whole different thing. ADC's exploded now. Now Craig Jones just kicked the door in, and said, I got $1 million cash, and people are like, okay, cool. I'm coming to your tournament, and growth, we're seeing the market being, used properly. You have options now and people have to pay you what you're worth, or you can go somewhere else. And so you're not stuck in like, the UFC beginning thing where it's like you fight in UFC or you don't fucking fight, and why you say you do what I tell you when I tell you for how much I tell you, or you don't get to play in the sandbox, and there is no other sandbox, and so I think it's really, I tell my guys now, it's really a renaissance time in jiu-jitsu, and it's taking a while, but I mean, there's jiu-jitsu everywhere. There's tons of kids programs now. I mean, back when I started jiu-jitsu, you didn't touch people's face. You didn't push on their face and do that. If you did anything other than straight ankles, you were considered, a bad person, and really that's what made me famous. I mean, I went to Las Vegas for work. And then when I was done, I went to San Diego, and I ran into Dean Lister on accident. I was a lonely blue belt. I've been training like a year and a half, right? I go to this class and Dean Lister's teaching, and he teaches these knee bars and all this setup shit. I'm like, this is really fucking dope. And Dean's like me. He's got a huge head. He's got these huge hands. I mean, he's this prototypical grappler, and I stayed first class. Like, this was awesome. It was like a Friday. So I changed my flight and I trained twice on Saturday. And then Saturday night, he's like, hey, let's go get fish tacos. And I'm like, all right, cool. So we go to the pier in San Diego. We get fish tacos. We drink all afternoon. Like, him and I were like peas in a fucking pod, right? We train on Sunday, and I'm like, oh, yeah, there's no way I'm going home. So their old gym, they actually had their gym just recently burned down. Did you see that?
Yeah.
By a former student, just like my old gym was.
Yeah.
It was burned down by a former student. And so their old gym had these little, like, they were a little bit bigger than walk-in closets, and they put bunk beds in there on a hot plate, and you could stay there if you were training, right? And so I'm like, I have 2 young daughters, and I'm working in corporate America, and I'm like, I told my wife that I was still married, and I said, I'm gonna stay here for a couple days. She's like, what? I'm like, I'm gonna stay and train with this dude Dean. I'm like, he's got these crazy good leg locks, and like nobody's doing leg locks back then. This was 15 years ago, 13 years ago. And, no one was doing leg locks, and, still, jiu-jitsu hadn't gone through what it's going through now in this renaissance. And she's like, all right, cool. So I stayed the whole week. I would train twice a day with Dean, and then we would go out and go surfing and go eat, go drink. And I stayed the whole week, and then came back, took a whole week off of work. And I came back and I instantly started leg locking everybody. And that's really what made me famous as a blue belt. I started leg locking everybody because people didn't even realize it. Back then, a lot of the rules weren't even in place. You knee bars and heel hooks and, some of these nasty, Achilles locks. I mean, he taught me Achilles locks a long time ago before people were even doing them, and now people are famous with them, like Mike Musumeci, has got that little Achilles lock that he's got. I mean, he's doing some crazy Achilles locks. And so that actually transitioned me in because my old professor was like, hey, on Tuesday nights, do you want to teach for like an hour and show all these leg locks that you've learned? And I'm like, yeah. So going out to tournaments as a purple belt, I remember going to Seth's big national event, and I won purple belt, my bracket, the purple belt open, and then I won the absolute with all purple belt, brown and black by hitting leg locks as a purple belt,
And when you say leg locks, are you saying like heel hooks? Or are we talking like straight ankles, Aokis, toe holds?
He was doing everything. He was doing everything back then, and so I was doing heel hooks and everything. Tons of knee bars, tons of all those transitions in and out of those positions. That back then heel hooks were a part of it. I think now like you see a ton more heel hooks than you do knee bars and things like that. Back then they were kind of all hard to defend, so it's easier to hit knee bars. Now like guys are pretty adept at clearing out of knee bars, and they're pretty adept at clearing out of heel hooks and stuff. That's just kind of the hardest one, so it's kind of the most popular submission. It's damaging and most popular. Some of it was like right place at right time, being lucky, and some of it was just hard work. I was really looking for something to give me substance in life. And so I just quit my job.
I have this, it's so funny you bring this up, but I have this quote like in my journal. It says, the most dangerous risk of all is spending your entire life not doing what you want on the bet that you can buy yourself freedom later. And I think a lot of people work 60, 70 years thinking, as soon as I make enough money, as soon as I reach retirement, as soon as I pay all these things off, then I'll go do what I want. And you're 70 years old trying to finally start doing the things you enjoy doing.
Absolutely. My aunt just talked to me that because I shared this quote with her. My aunt goes, man, your uncle and I have money now to do stuff, and they're both on oxygen, and they're like, we can't do anything.
You can't travel. Or they're terrified to because they're so set in their routine. They don't want to.
Yep. Yeah. But I sent her this quote a while ago when it's chatting about it, and it goes hand in hand with yours. It's I don't remember exactly, but it says young men will sacrifice their health for money, and old men will sacrifice their money for health.
I guess, how did that kind of transition into you becoming like a big pillar at your current gym of training MMA fighters?
Yeah. I mean, that was literally, I knew I didn't think I was going to teach jiu-jitsu. I knew I was done with the job that I had. So I quit. I went to see George in California, and I ended up staying out there like 10 days. I rode my motorcycle out there. I didn't take my phone. I was like so burned out and stuff. I was married then. And I told my wife, I said, I'm going to go to California and train, see my other buddy, and do some fun stuff, and I'm like, I'm not taking my phone. And she's like, okay. And I'm like, my phone goes off all the time from work. My work phone was also my personal phone. And so it was just busy all the time, emails and calls and texts all the time. And so I powered my phone off. I put it on my dresser. I loaded up my road glide, and I rode to California, right? I rode to California all the time. I did it every summer for at least 10 straight summers, So I start heading south, and I get to Pueblo, and I'm like, God, there's a couple turns in on the way that I don't know. I'm like, I need a map. He's like, we have the little Colorado fold-out map. And I'm like, no, I need an atlas. I'm like, I need an atlas. I'm like, I need to get through Vegas. I need to get on the highway. I need to get into LA. I need to get to George's address, And he's like, oh, yeah, you have to go to Walmart to get one. Yeah, that doesn't help me either. I'm like, so he looks up the directions on his phone, and I write them down on a sticky tab, put them on my gas tank to get me to Walmart. And I bought a little atlas. Everybody was worried about me working but me, right? Like, honestly, I knew it was coming. Like in my head, I was like, I'm transitioning my way out, and it was more abrupt than I'd planned, quitting, because I'd planned on working, like another year or so and paying off some stuff, whatever, but I'd still kind of set myself up. So I had some money saved, and I paid off a bunch of stuff. So I was like, cool, I'm just going to chill. I'm just going to train like 2-3 times a day and do some fun stuff with my kids. I was training in the morning. I would go to work all day and then come home and train all night. Then I would do food prep and do my laundry, and that's it. There's no time for anything else, And so I didn't work for like 3 months. I was just training. I got to go on my kids' field trips. It was so dope. And then my previous gym, my professor's like, hey, what are you going to do? And in my mind, I was like, I might rent a little place and start my own gym. I don't need a lot of money, and all I want to do is train. And so I'm tossing around the idea of renting a little place and starting a gym. And he's like, well, why don't you just stay here, and I'll add some classes into the schedule, and we'll make you a full-time instructor here. And then as new students come on, I'll give you a percentage of new students, and, you should get a livable wage. And so I was like, that'll work. That saves me having to leave here and start my own place and kind of do that, and so it was a pretty simple process. And then that blossomed, like my classes got full. He was averaging, when we started, we used to chop it up. He was averaging 44 students the 6 months before me. Within a year of me teaching full time, we were above 100 students, and within 18 months, we were above 120. I tripled the number of students.
I was gonna say that's
yeah. And so,
do you want to share what the name of the academy was?
Yeah, it was Colorado Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Okay.
It was great. I mean, when I was there, it was a powerhouse. We had, I won worlds in 2017, no gi. I won worlds 2018 in the gi. After not training much gi at all, I forced myself to work in the gi for a year straight to get it. I won PANS in 2020. I won my belt, my bracket, and the absolute at PANS at black belt. And I have a bunch of world champions under me. And I built a powerhouse there, and unfortunately, like, it never processed out to me being a gym owner there, and I talked with him repeatedly that I didn't want to be an employee, that someday I wanted to be a gym owner, and I was running this powerhouse gym and had all these MMA fighters and all these guys, and it felt uncomfortable for me when people would be like, what do you do? And I'm like, oh, I teach over there, I'm like, I want to be like, I own a gym. I run a gym. Like I travel constantly with my guys, we're all over, and so
I get that.
after a couple of years of asking nicely and going, hey, you should make me a partner, like if you're ever going to have a partner, I'd be a really good one because I bring a lot to the table, and he basically just, made some excuses and, kind of like, you can't right now because of this and can't right now because of that. And after COVID happened, we came back, we started, basically back at zero. We started with like 30 or 40 students after COVID because everybody was scared to death after COVID,
I remember that.
built that gym again. And at the end, it was really, really rough because everybody came to my classes and very few people were going to his classes. And there was a real big division. And so I finally had to just, stop being nice. And I said, if you don't make me a partner, I'm going to leave. And I don't think he thought I was going to do it, and I didn't really want to do it because I'm a loyal person. But, at the end, he'd made some promises and didn't keep them, and had lied about some stuff. And so the relationship had really fractured. And so.
And you communicated like your desires and what you wanted,
Yeah. And I was really patient. I honestly stayed longer than I should have, but it was what it was. And luckily I had this whole crew of purple belts and brown belts and black belts, and they were like, let's fucking buy a building. Let's fucking do this.
Let's do it.
Yeah, they're like, we got all this steam, and these are all dudes who are like doctors and lawyers, and business owners and dudes, like a lot, dudes that work in software and, that all like, they're all cerebral dudes, right? They're in jiu-jitsu for a reason, that it's mentally and physically challenging and they're mentally strong. And so one of my guys who's an absolute, amazing man, husband, father, jiu-jitsu practitioner, Dell, for my gym as a commercial real estate agent. And so we had popped around and done some stuff, and he helped facilitate getting the loan on this building. And we went and looked at it. And Colette, I think Colette's actually the one who actually found it. She used to run 10th Planet Parker down in Parker. And she started jiu-jitsu and within like a year opened her own jiu-jitsu gym, tried hiring a black belt, tried hiring another black belt. She was just like madly in love with it and couldn't get all the pieces to fit. So then she came and piggybacked with me, and she's like, hey, I'll help you get yours started. I want to be a part of your gym. I want to be a gym owner too, And so we found this dilapidated building in Colfax and Dayton that had been setting for about like 2 years. It'd been for sale for 2 years.
Okay.
It'd been run swamp coolers and didn't ventilate it, so the moisture warped the wooden floors, and the inside of the building was, the drywall was asbestos. All the office walls were asbestos. Built in the 60s and 70s. So they're like, it's and in my head, and Dell's like, we're gonna gut it anyways. We're gonna take all this out and make mat space. It's gonna be an open, building. We're taking these walls out anyways. We're gonna redo the floors and put in cement. And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, so, we're going to offer him a really low price and then we'll meet in the middle. So we offered him, the building next to it is a twin building. We share a wall and it's a twin building. They had that one for sale for like $1.3 million. And then they had ours for sale for like $1.1 million. And so Dell's like, we're going to offer him a really low price. We'll offer him like 550, and then they'll come back at 9. We'll go at 7. Maybe we get it for 800,000, and I'm like, Dell, I don't have 800,000. He's like, well, we'll get you financing, we'll get it done.
Yeah.
So we offered him 550. And then as we're doing that, they find a little crawl space in the bottom that has like a cellar in the building that's been boarded up and carpeted over it for like, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 years. And the cement walls had collapsed and crumbled. And Dell's like, listen, it's no big deal. We're going to cement everything anyways. And I'm like, yeah, that's true. We're just going to take a little bit more dirt and then we'll pack it. We're taking out the wood floors anyways, So for us, it was no big deal. The owners were like, so they just go, we'll take 550 cash. And we were like, holy fuck. And so I'd saved a bunch of money. So I had $180,000 to put down. So I borrowed $300,000 hard money, which just means cash from someone, because we couldn't get a conventional loan because it was so bad. So I just borrowed the money and I bought it, and I'm paying that back. It's going to take 5 years to pay back the $300,000 and I'm done, And so I spent 49 straight days remodeling that building. So I used to flip houses too. So I brought my guys in and we did every inch of it, every inch of brand new electrical, every inch of brand new plumbing. We ripped out the floors. They came in. Adam Vigil, who's a really popular MMA fighter, he just signed a big contract here to fight for a title. He runs a little cement company, and they came in and did the whole front in cement and redid it with like 4-inch cement that you could drive like a forklift over. It's commercial grade cement. And then I threw it on mats, and I told my guys the second my mats are down, we're going to open. And so, as we rewind,
from the purchase date to open date, what was that timeline?
49 days from the day we purchased. I bought it at 8 in the morning. By like 9 in the morning, we were in there crowbarring out stuff and working. And I worked like 12 or 14 hours a day in there straight, and then would go teach. I'd go teach my classes and come back. And I there was nights I just slept there and then worked the next day, because I was like, I burned all the bridges. Every dollar I had in the world was invested in there, and I was like, this will work. It may not be the easy way, it may not be the smooth way, but we're going to make this work. Like, it has to work. And so, so when I left and we opened this new gym, we had 118 students on the roster there. And my guys went. What?
Day one, you had 118?
No, at my old gym. The day I was fired, my old gym had 118.
Okay.
102 came with me. So 16 stayed there. 102. Every black belt, every brown belt, and every purple belt, and most of the blue belts, a couple straggly white belts. 16 people stayed, and I started day one with 102 students.
That's awesome.
It was awesome. So, I mean, we opened with mats. We opened with just mats on the floor in the bathrooms. I mean, lights were on, and there was nothing else. And then we built it, and it's now we have a full Rubbermaid CrossFit area that has Olympic lifting. We have a cardio area that has a big treadmill, a rower, and an Airdyne bike. And then we have a recovery area that has big sauna, big cold plunge, and there you can just sit and stretch and throw your gear bags down or whatever. We have 4 bathrooms, 2 huge showers. I made the showers 4 feet by 4 feet, and the shower head's 7 foot high. I'm sure you've seen my social media. I have a couple 6'10" former college basketball players, they're good athletes to train, and they're like, you got it, I'm like, I made tall showers for you. And one of them's like, I only shower here, Don. They come in the mornings, I shower before work. He's like, I can stand in there and shower. He's like, he rents an old house with his wife, and he's like, I have to bend over to shower. And he's like, it's miserable. He's like, I love the showers here. So we built everything, exactly the way we wanted it. So, I mean, it's just been like, it's been the most like exciting, nauseating, thrilling, excruciating thing I've ever done, other than being a father and all the roller coasters that come in with that. I mean, I've just had the highest of highs, and some really struggle times. I mean, really haven't had any low times, but I mean, it's difficult times. You're always like, man, if something goes wrong, I don't have a whole lot of things to fall back on, but we have a really solid community there of guys who work hard, push each other, and compete. We got a bunch of guys fighting. We got for a mediocre sized gym, we have 13, 14 guys on the roster that are, fighting, getting ready to fight, maybe make their debut. Zach Harris running the majority of the MMA program now because I'm so busy. Him and I together way back in the day. He's a great dude. He's a brown belt with us. And he's just spearheaded the MMA program while I'm busy, and he's done a phenomenal job. And so, yeah, that was a year ago. We just had our 1-year anniversary. We ordered.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's so dope. We're getting ready to bring, a bunch of new things in this year. We've kind of doing everything that I had to do to make things work, and now I have the point of do things that I want to do. We haven't even really got to decorate. All my world title medals and all my MMA gloves were lost in the fire when we had the fire at our old gym. And so all that stuff was up at our old gym, people go there, like, oh man, there's so many cool photos and all of your stuff, and the glass cases with my MMA gloves and all my MMA belts and stuff. And 90% of that was lost in the fire. So my gym walls are pretty bare. So I've got a big sticker on my phone, and I'm going to start putting up one thing a week. I'm going to start, finding things and printing them and putting back up. And, we've had a bunch of people who won worlds last year at purple belt and brown belt, and I want to put their picture up and have them, that's one of the big things that we're missing right now is that home field that we had at my old gym with all of our medals and all of our posters and stuff up. So a lot of those fun things that'll be a lot of fun to do this year is our big goal this year as we move forward.
Awesome. Well, I thank you for giving me all that background on your history and MMA, and you answered a lot of the questions I already have. So what I really want to do is dive a little bit deeper into kind of your philosophy and components of how you train fighters, and, dig a little bit more into the mental. So, I think my first question is, what are some key components of preparing a fighter for an upcoming match?
Um, I think it's multifaceted. You have to be mentally prepared for what's coming. And I think there's some philosophy things that really stick to fighting. And it talks about, if you make a set plan and you say things have to go this way, I have to take the guy down. I have to pass his guard, and then I'll mount him, and then I'll finish him, right? That's how I'm going to win this fight. And then if you go out there and things don't go that way, a lot of fighters go, "Oh, it's all lost. He took me down. Now I'm fighting off my back, and I'm trying for the sloppy triangle, and maybe I get it, maybe I don't, and it just takes all the wind out of your sails, and you feel like you should give up. And so what you really have to do physically and mentally is prepare yourself for every single outcome, and like I always mentally prepare my fighters with the fact that there's going to be good times and bad times. In The Art of War, that huge book says there's always going to be good times and bad times in the art of war, right? Positive and negative. And so what I focus my guys is on, there's going to be times we get stuck against cage. There's going to be times that we get taken down, whatever. What we're going to do is minimize that time, right? We're going to be efficient as we can to get out of those positions, minimize our damage, and be safe. The times when we're in good position, we have them against the cage, we have them down on the ground, we're hitting our combos or whatever, we're going to maximize that time. And all of a sudden we unlevel the playing field, right? There's going to be bad times. There's going to be times you get caught. There's going to be times you take some punches and kicks. There's going to be times maybe you get leg trip taken down before you even realize it. And you're going to have to go, okay, cool. Well, we're here and we're going to deal with it. We're just going to get up and be as efficient as possible. So the mental aspect for fighters is huge, because your mind can be your ultimate strength, and your mind can be, an absolute liability if you let it, and the more seasoned you become, the easier that gets. But when these guys are young, they're 20 something, they don't, they haven't done it, it's easy for them to get mentally exhausted, mentally broken, and some nagging injuries, and maybe the same guy in the gym keeps beating them up all the time, and they're like, maybe this isn't for me, and so a lot of mine now is mental preparation. I preach to my guys about physical preparation all the time. And so the worst thing that can happen is you can go out and lose to somebody that you should beat because you weren't physically prepared. That I have no control over, right? If you're out of shape and you're not physically prepared to go fight, there's no coaching in the world that's going to make you get past the point of exhaustion when you're exhausted 30 seconds in, or you do something, stupid and get caught, and then you're gassed. So I preach to my guys about physical preparation, and then I leave that to them. They're old enough. These are all men, and I expect them to get their road work and their mileage and their lifts in when they're supposed to. I expect them to eat good. I never inspect their food and their things like that. I put them on the scale and I go, whatever you're doing is not working, or whatever you're doing is working great, because the scale doesn't lie. The same way the mat doesn't lie. When you're on the mat doesn't lie. When you're out there, if you're constantly getting arm barred, you are not keeping your arms in the proper position, and that's what we have to work on, right? You can't tell me that your arms are in good position when you got armbarred by 3 of your last 4 opponents. We know that that's instant feedback, and you're gonna have to fix it. And so my guys, they eat, they train on their own when they're in class. I make sure that they're super disciplined. But the biggest thing for fighters is that the mental preparation, because it's a really grueling sport. It's grueling, and it takes a toll on your body, and it takes a toll on your mental capacity too. And so I feel like my energy right now is best focused on getting those guys mentally prepared for war, for the battles that come in, so that they're not shocked when these things happen, when they're out there and things don't go well, or when things do go well, and be ready for that, because things are going to go well. And if you work hard, eventually you're going to get the results that you want.
Well, I've been privy to watching a lot of coaches interact with their fighters, and some coaches are very hands off. I mean, it's kind of like, I'm here, I'll wrap your hands, whether you win or lose, like, I got shit to do. It's very passive. But then I see other coaches that they have a warm up, they have a circuit, they wrap their hands really well. They're there for them. They talk to them the whole time. They, tell them to relax. They tell them to get their heart rate up, and they're there for them after win or lose, after they come out of the cage, to give them feedback. And it's like very hands-on, and it varies vastly between different promotions and fighters. And even martial art styles. But one thing that I've always seen that you do is that you're very attentive to your fighters. Even if you have multiple fighters in the corner, Don's always coming in with his fighters and he's talking to them. He's getting them warmed up. He's prepping them. So I guess I'm just more curious on like fight day, on fight day, what do you do to prep your fighters from the moment that they wake up that morning to when they step in that ring?
We have a pretty solid system that we use that, we've just taken bits and pieces from lots of different fighters, lots of different coaches, over my years of doing this. But in the morning, the guys are always cutting weight the day before. So, we always let them try to sleep in a little bit in the morning. By 10 or 11, we do a shakeout. Anywhere we can, hotels, anywhere we can. We just hit mitts, move around, get sweaty, get the first blood pump of the day and get your muscles warmed up, and then immediately cool down. And then the rest of the day is just focused on hydration, food, making sure you're getting quality food, tons of hydration. That way you're ready to go at night. At night, we have a set system that we use, so that people are ready. I mean, I have some tricks that I've learned that, about warming people up and taping their hands that really work well, that people really enjoy. Those things create stability, which creates your fighter the ability to relax and focus on what he has to do, and go out there and perform well.
I know we talked a little bit, I think it was the last Sparta card, but you said that you have some verbiage that you train between you and your fighters so that when they're in the ring, that there's like code words.
Yeah, I put some stuff together because it's number one, there's a lot of mediocre coaches out there. Watch your neck. Like that's low quality coaching. Like, what do you mean watch your neck? Watch your arm. He's after your arm. Like, everybody knows he's going arm bar. Which arm? And what's he supposed to do with it? Take your right hand, put it on your hip, get your elbow to your rib cage. That kind of coaching separates good coaches from mediocre and bad coaches. And so I have a handful of keywords that allows my students to know, for me to tell them what's coming or what they should do without telling the other opponent, right? And so, yeah. And so we have some tricks to stealing rounds. If it's a really razor close rounds, we have some verbiage of what to do at the end of a round. No, so it goes off in my fighter's head. I'm not looking for a TKO or a knockout or something really nasty. I'm looking for something clean and smooth that's in the last 25 seconds of the round before this 10-second clapper, when both people go 10-second clapper and they scramble to win the round.
Mm-hmm.
Close round, I make a call. They know it's a really close round, and for us to steal the round, we're going to do A, B, or C. And the worst possible scenario is that his opponent has a really high quality coach and it's a level playing field.
Yeah.
Majority of the time, they have a good coach or a mediocre coach, and having a really high level coach and a high level team is going to give them an advantage. So not only are they physically prepared and mentally prepared, they have a better resource, on the cage, on the side of the mat than the majority of the time than their opponents do.
There's nothing worse than this has happened to me numerous times where you're fighting for, say, an armbar or a triangle, and your coach yells out, "Yeah, go for that triangle."
You're like, "Oh, that's great."
Your opponent hears it, and then they just full on defend that submission.
And at the end of the day, you're like, "What does that do? That doesn't help me at all."
You're helping me. You're helping them.
If you told me to grab my shin or cup the back of their head with my right hand, then you'd give me some technical advantage to doing it. But just yelling, "Yeah, the triangle's there!" Like, now they posture and they're out of the triangle, and you're just like, shake my head, So
frustrating.
Yeah.
Well, jumping back into the mental aspect of fighting, how do you mentally help your fighters recover, both physically and mentally, after a tough fight? And I mean, they could win or lose, and maybe you have differing approaches, but what is your approach after the fight?
My approach after the fight is really hands off. I tell my guys to make sure that they get some food, spend time with their loved ones, eat some drunk food. My kids and I used to make a list of stuff we couldn't eat when I was in camp. That way, as soon as we're at a camp, we're like, man, we're going for chicken and pizza, and it became like our whole week of celebration.
I had a conversation with a previous guest about good coaches, just to jump back to good coaching, but good coaches are able to see what their fighter needs. I think a lot of inexperienced coaches, they just kind of project, this is how I fought, this is what I want, you know, this is how I prep for a fight, and they just project that on their fighter. And if, you know, if they want somebody screaming and slapping them and punching them in the shoulder and like getting them amped up for the ring, maybe that's not what that fighter needs. You know, maybe they need some solitude and just music and peace and quiet. And so I think it speaks volumes that, you know, you can kind of telegraph the needs of your individual fighters and, you know, give them each individually what they want.
Absolutely. Yeah. They're human beings. They'll all react differently, you know,
Yeah.
and they'll react differently. Same person will react differently to different fights. You know, some fights they'll come out really mentally strong, and some fights they'll come out and be really disappointed themselves, and they need a whole different type of care, even though it's the same person. You know, they're human beings, and you just got to try to, you know, absorb as much as you can, and then dissect that and go, what can I do to help them in the position that they're in now?
What do you think? I mean, now that you're experiencing, you know, a 1-year celebration from your gym, what do you think is the most rewarding aspects of finally being that gym owner that you wanted to be?
The selfish part of it for me is like retirement, right? Like a big part of me wanting to be a partner and a gym owner at my old gym was because I'm 50 years old, you know, and someday I want to retire and chill with my kids and go cool places, you know, and by sometimes I mean, like soon, you know, like I want to start, you know, maybe coaching and teaching 2 weeks a month and traveling 2 weeks a month, you know, before I'm 55. You know, like I'm not going to wait till I'm too old and I can't do it, you know, and I already travel a good bit and do a bunch of fun stuff with my kids and things like that, you know. So I'm trying to live that life as much as possible now. So I don't think I was ever going to be able to do that in a capacity, just being an employee at my old gym, you know. So I knew I needed some sort of retirement plan, you know, and I don't really have any other retirement plan. The other part is, I mean, I love doing it because I get to see so many people grow, and we have such a good community. You know, we had one of our students, a guy and a girl, that met at our gym. They got married, you know, and their wedding was really dope. You know, and this was a couple years ago, but so that was really cool. But I mean, I see so many people come in that are like struggling in life, and they're like, "Man, I want to get in shape." I'm like, "Jiu-jitsu is good for that. Like, I need to build some confidence." I'm like, "Jiu-jitsu is good for that." What they don't realize is they're going to get kind of immersed into this community, and all of a sudden, there's people to hang out with and people to get food with after class, and then there's weekends. And my gym's big on events. We do an event like every month or every other month. I mean, we celebrate days and we do stuff like we do barbecues all the time. I order food and everybody shows up. They bring their kids. I mean, you know, we're still not a big gym by any means. We don't even have a kids program yet, you know, and it'd be dope, you know, when someday when we have 80, 100 kids in a kids program, you know, it'd be amazing, you know, for our growth as a gym. But everybody knows everybody's families. Everybody knows what each other does. They know their kids, you know, everybody knows my kids. And so I think what people don't understand is that that's what they get, you know, all of a sudden they're like, man, I really like it. Or like I come in, like everybody knows me. They give me a hard time about the fucking shorts I'm wearing, you know, so you know you're a part of it when, you know, people are, you know, giving you gas about, you know, the shorts or the color of rash guard you got or whatever, you know. And so people get immersed pretty quick. So we have good retention because of that. And I just love seeing people, you know, go from struggling to being really happy, you know, and they're like, man, this is my happy place, you know, like I come here and when I'm done, like you know, I feel a lot better and, you know, my next couple of days are great, you know, and then I start getting grouchy. I'm like, I got to get back in the gym. If I'm not in there every other day, you know, or even every day for some of my guys, you know, they're like, I get grouchy and ornery and I get to see that all the time. And it's dope, you know, and it's not always fun because when people come in the gym, like I'm the psychologist, you know, it's like, man, my job sucks, Don. And I'm like, yeah, I'm like, that's why I quit my job, bro. That's why I don't do a job.
That's why I do this.
You know, and they're like, my girl's this, you know, I can't believe it. Like someone stole the catalytic converter out of my car last week. This kid's like, I can't come. It's probably gonna be a week or more before you see me. They cut the catalytic converter out of my car. I have no money. I'm like, fuck, bro. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna pause your account so that'll save you $180 for the month, and we'll see you. You know, I'm like, so come back in and train, then we'll start it next month. And he's like, oh, thanks, you know. But I get everybody, you know, they come in the gym, they're always like, oh, this is going on, that's going on. So I'm always the psychologist, but the majority of the time it's like people light up, you know, they come in, they know everybody at the gym, like, you know, people full of energy, and the classes are, you know, really good, and it's different. I mean, I don't know anything else like it. I know it's selfish for me too, because I'm like, I'm not going to do anything else. You know, I'm never going to go back to like a regular job ever, you know, no matter what happens, you know, like I want to do stuff where I get to watch people grow and help them and watch the community raise, itself and each other at the same time.
It's nice to have a job where like what you put in, you immediately get out of it,
The big bullet is the kids program. I have to figure out how that's going to work. Finding a quality kids instructor that can teach during kids class times and stuff has been extremely challenging. What a lot of people don't grasp is every single adult at my gym chooses to come there.
Yeah.
They want to learn jiu-jitsu. They want to be there. Right? Kids are usually there because their parents want them there.
Yeah.
So adults are internally motivated.
Yep.
They'll listen to you. They'll ask for help. They'll stay after class.
Yep.
Kids are externally motivated. You got to externally motivate them the majority of the time. So it does take a very special person to do kids class, and it's challenging for sure. Yeah. And it takes a lot of time and energy, and it's something I don't have right now. So it's on the back burner. So that'll be coming. We have a pretty robust schedule right now. We've condensed our schedule. We even had it a little bit bigger when we opened, and we found that condensing it a little bit was just better for us to have a few less classes with more people in them than kind of all spread out. And we're still a little bit spread out. We're probably a little bit more spread out than we should be. We have some adjustments coming here soon of a couple of classes to even condense it down a little bit more. But we still have 2 or 3 classes every single day, so we stay super busy with that. We have a couple traditional wrestling classes, ton of jiu-jitsu classes. We have 1 traditional Muay Thai class taught by my Muay Thai guy, and then 3 or 4 MMA classes throughout the week. And then the MMA guys filter into regular jiu-jitsu classes to get roles in there too.
Do you have any instructors that offer like private classes or group training or anything like that?
Yeah, we have a couple guys who specialize in stuff like that, and we have a war board. We have a big whiteboard at our gym, and so we put competitions up there and guys fighting and stuff like that. And a lot of times we do that. I know we have Josh Schubert's coaching some striking. Josh has fought like 44 times or something. I mean, he was fighting back when I was fighting. He's still fighting. He just fought last weekend at the bare knuckles. I told you. We go, man, our schedule is going to be dope. We have 10 great black belts. They're all going to teach one class. You can teach your favorite stuff. So everybody gets a little piece of everybody. Mm-hmm. And then we're like, this is a fucking mess. There's way too many classes. People are scattered all over the place. Like, we have to condense this. You're going to have to get over it.
I think gratitude and generosity reciprocates. It does take time, but I do think there's truth to that. And most businesses don't make it 1 year. So it's huge. And I think that you having the flexibility to see what's working and what's not working and refine it, tweak it, change it, update it is what's probably going to create a lot of longevity for Denver Modern. So I'm excited to see where you guys go with that.
We keep doing the right things at the right time. Those things will happen naturally and we'll be successful.
Well, I told you I only had 1 question left, but I do have one more. And I want to know how you got the name Doomsday Donnie.
Aaron Vieiro, do you know who he is?
That sounds familiar. I don't know.
He runs a kickboxing place up in Fort Collins, and then he helps promote Colorado Combat. And he's been in.
I know Aaron.
Josh Cavan used to fight with me. Do you know who Josh Cavan is? He used to fight with me way back in the day. He looked like Superman. He always had like an 8-pack, and he had like this perfect hair. So we were all in sparring back in the day when I was there. Jeremy Kimball was there, and Jeremy Osheim, Marcus Edwards. I mean, we had a ton of guys, and it was just bloodbaths on Saturdays, right? And one day we were doing rounds, and I don't know if I was getting Shark Tanked or Josh was getting Shark Tanked, but we were going at it, and I was getting the best of him and beat him up. And on that day, and Aaron Vieiro goes, he used to be a comic dude. He said there was a character that killed Superman back in the 70s. They killed off the Superman character.
Okay.
Doomsday. And he's like, you look like you were Doomsday in there. You were like killing Josh Cavan. Okay. And he designed a couple fight shirts for me. Brawlin used to be my clothing sponsor. And so he made some Doomsday looking shirts, and Brawlin made them out, and they sold them. I see people wearing them, mowing their lawns and stuff. It was like crazy. And it just fucking stuck. You can't pick your nickname. Like pretty soon everybody started calling me Doomsday, and it just stuck. And there was just like no stopping it, and I was like, it used to be a cartoon character on a comic book, killed Superman for 6 months, and Superman came back, and now he's super popular. But in the 70s, he got killed off, and they're like, okay. And I'm like, yeah, I don't get it either, but it stuck. That's where it came from, and there's no getting rid of it now.
Oh, I love it. I think I had heard it before. I probably heard it at Pro 1 when you fought Bruce, or Pro 2. Was it Pro 2?
I think I fought Bruce on Pro 2 or Pro 3.
Yeah, I was there. I went to those for probably the first 10.
I know you told me you just had Bruce on. How was his podcast?
Well, Bruce is going to be episode 3, so he'll be after you.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, his was great. Bruce is like very cerebral, but I'm excited to, edit and pick through that too.
Absolutely. Yeah. If it's twofold, if you're dynamic in the gym with leg locks and you have, a great persona teaching and personality, like people are just gravitated to you, and Bruce has that. I know he's been super popular, his academy, for a long time. And yeah, I mean, he was doing leg locks back when I fought him the first time. It was because nobody else wanted to fight him.
He was doing leg locks.
He look at everybody and doing to everybody, and so yeah, we had our battles back and forth. It was really great. I mean, I know it was big for him and his gym, and it was big for me, and he caught me a couple times. I caught him a couple times, but people were always like excited to see us go at it, like it was always a point of we got to make sure we watch this match because Don either wins in spectacular fashion or he loses in spectacular fashion. That's been my motto, for MMA too. Like I had one decision, in my whole career in MMA, and then I've had no decisions in Jiu-Jitsu Pro that I can think of. Like I either, I go out and throw it on on the mat, and I'm like, I take my chances, and if I don't catch you, then maybe you catch me, but I'm not going to make it boring and stuff like that. So I always tell people, I'm like, there'll be fireworks. They may be good, they may be bad if you're a fan of mine, but either way, you're going to see fireworks.
Yeah, I think the only other thing that I want to talk about is just how people can connect with you and follow the journey of Denver Modern and also your individual journey, because you post separately. Do you manage both of those social medias?
I do. I do keep them separate. I want Denver Modern to have its own page and do its own thing. And then my personal page that is always for me and my kids, and my friends. So, and obviously they mix a lot together, which is, no big deal because that gym, is my baby. So, I mean, Denver Modern on Instagram and Doomsday Donnie on Instagram are the two best ways to follow us on social media. And then, you can go to our website, denvermjj.com, Denver Modern Jiu-Jitsu, if you want to type it all the way out, also redirects to our website and stuff.
And you guys do a really good job of updating if you have current members that have upcoming fights or upcoming, bouts or jiu-jitsu competitions or anything like that. I know you guys do have a competition scene. I'm assuming you also have your hobbyist scene, people that just enjoy training. So, and then where is it located again? It's off Colfax in Denver.
Colfax and Dayton. Yeah. We're just west of the hospital there, like off 225. We're basically between downtown and the National Jewish Children's Hospital, that huge area right there. We're basically right in the middle of that. So kind of in the middle, back and forth.
Awesome. Well, Don, anything else that you want to share? No,
I think it was good. I appreciate you having me on. It's fun to share. It's fun to think about some of those old stories, and I enjoy coming on. I look forward to doing it again sometime.
I would love that, and I appreciate your time. And I'm so happy that we were able to link up and have this interview. And I'll definitely let our listeners know to follow you on Instagram at Doomsday Donnie. And as well as you can follow his gym at Denver Modern JJ.
Yep.
And then your website is denvermjj.com.
Yep. And you can Google them and all of them pop up. Put Denver Modern Jiu-Jitsu in your Google on your phone, your laptop, and it'll pop up all of our Instagram, our Facebook, things like that.
Awesome. Well, Don, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Thanks for all the stories and all the advice and all the feedback. And it's been an honor to watch your fighters fight too, because they're very well-rounded. They're very mentally sound. It's and I've got to know some of them personally. So that's been awesome.
We got a bright future. We got a bunch of young kids, a bunch of great new jiu-jitsu people. So we got a bright future, man. It's exciting. So I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, of course. Healthy things grow, so.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And we'll talk soon.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Combat Brain. We hope you've gained valuable insights and inspiration from our discussions with experts in the field. Keep honing your combat brain, stay sharp, and never stop pushing the boundaries of what's possible. Until next time, keep fighting the good fight, both inside and outside the ring. This is Combat Brain, signing off.